You keep chasing change, but nothing sticks because your habits haven't. Success isn't built on motivation. It's built on repetition. If you wake up doing the same things, you'll keep living the same life. But the moment you take control of your daily patterns, everything begins to shift. Your future is hidden in your routine. Shift your habits with intention, and you'll unlock a version of yourself you've never met before. In a few moments, I will teach you how changing small daily habits can completely transform your mindset, direction, and entire life. You become what you repeatedly do. You are not the sum of your intentions. You are the sum of your actions. Not once, not twice, but the actions you repeat without fail, day in and day out. You may think your life is determined by big decisions, but it is the small, invisible habits that shape your destiny. A man doesn't wake up successful. He becomes successful through a quiet ritual of repeated behavior, thoughts, words, movements that sculpt his mind and mold his results. But why do so many fail to see this? Because habit disguises itself as routine. You stop noticing the very thing that's shaping your outcomes. You rise late, put things off, speak words of doubt, then wonder why success feels like it belongs to someone else. It isn't fate, it isn't luck, it's your pattern, a habit you've rehearsed into permanence. So how do you turn the wheel? You begin by observing. Begin your mornings with intention. Instead of drifting, choose. Choose action over excuse. Choose focus over noise. Choose to build, to refine, to grow. Replace one small habit, just one. Do it every day, not once a week. Let it become your new default. Imagine this. You rise before the sun. You speak words of power, not complaint. You write down your goals, not once, but each day. How long before the world begins to bend in your favor? Not long. Because your habits write your story, even when you're not paying attention. So I ask you, what have you been rehearsing lately? Fear or faith? Delay or discipline? Because what you do consistently, you become permanently. Choose wisely. Small disciplines build great fortunes. Greatness is not built in a moment. It is carved, chiseled, refined in silence. A man becomes powerful not by dreaming of power, but by repeating small acts of discipline so consistently that they become his nature. Discipline is not about punishment. It is the gatekeeper of liberty. It is what separates those who live on purpose from those who live by accident. You may wonder, why bother with the small things? Because the small things are the big things in disguise. The way you rise, the way you speak to yourself, the way you do your work, even when no one is watching. These habits decide the size of your results. Begin by mastering the first hour of your day, not when the day gets busy, but before it begins. Make your bed with precision. Read something that strengthens the mind. Train the body. Speak your goals aloud. These aren't chores, they are declarations. Each act says, I am in command. Imagine a man who keeps his word to himself, who never lets fatigue speak louder than purpose, who each morning does what others won't. Over time, who will succeed? The one who works in flashes, or the one who builds like a mason, brick by brick? Now ask yourself, what small discipline have you been avoiding? That's your next door to power. Walk through it. Thoughts become habits, and habits shape fate. You must understand that your thinking is not neutral, it is a forge. Every thought you repeat hardens into belief, and every belief, if unexamined, becomes habit. Most men never rise because they never change the way they think. They hold on to doubts, fears, and tiny visions, and wonder why life offers them nothing more. But consider this, your mind is not meant to drift. It is meant to be driven. You can either fill it with thoughts that build you, or thoughts that bind you. The choice is always yours, yet few make it deliberately. You shift your destiny when you shift your dominant thoughts. Write them, speak them, think them, until they push out the poison of doubt. Say to yourself, I am capable, I am committed, I am becoming, not once, but constantly, until the voice of weakness fades and strength becomes natural. Imagine you're building a mansion. Would you lay bricks of fear and doubt? Or would you build with faith, vision, and courage? Your thoughts are the mortar of your future. Handle them with care. What have you been thinking when no one is looking? That's your true direction. Change it, and everything follows. Success is found in daily ritual, not occasional effort. Success is not a thunderclap, it is a whisper repeated through ritual. The men who build empires, fortunes, and legacies do not rely on moods or sudden bursts of energy. They build rituals, sacred patterns of action that produce predictable excellence. You've likely seen men who start strong, who sprint and then stumble. They rely on willpower. But willpower fades. Ritual remains. It carries you through fatigue, through boredom, through setback. It becomes who you are. But why is ritual so powerful? Because it doesn't ask your permission. Once formed, it acts automatically. It removes the friction between intention and execution. Ritual turns dreams into duties and duties into reality. You build a ritual by anchoring it to something sacred: morning, evening, meals. Attach an action to a moment. Repeat it, respect it, protect it. Let no excuse pierce it. Picture this: a man wakes before the town stirs. He lights a candle. He writes down 10 goals. He visualizes their completion. He lifts his body with effort. He repeats a sentence of power every day without fail. Will he not over time separate himself from the masses? So what are you doing each day without fail? That's your ritual. Is it building you or breaking you? Purpose fuels habits that last. A man who truly knows why he wakes up each morning does not need motivation. He embodies it. He does not shrink before pain, failure, or fatigue because his soul burns brighter than any obstacle. Purpose is not just a goal. It is the engine behind every action, the invisible fire that turns discipline from a burden into a form of worship. Without it, even the best habits wither. A man can force himself to run for a few days, rise early for a week, or grind for a month. But without purpose, he will eventually stop because there is no reason to continue. Now look around you. Watch how people live. Most move mechanically, drifting from one habit to another, mimicking what they see online, copying routines they do not understand, chasing results they don't even want. They scroll through other people's lives, hoping something will click in theirs. They wake up without clarity, they work without direction, they chase pleasure because they lack something more permanent. They do not fail because they are weak, they fail because they are not anchored. They lack purpose. And purpose cannot be inherited. It is not something anyone can give you. No book can hand it to you. No mentor can define it for you. You must decide it. You must write it. You must look into your own soul and say, this is why I am here. And once you do, you must return to it daily, morning after morning, night after night, not as a reminder, but as a ritual. The man who lives this way becomes unshakable, because when your habits are tied to your purpose, they transform. They are no longer duties, they are devotions. You no longer force yourself to stay focused. Distraction begins to feel like disrespect to your own destiny. You no longer need tricks to wake up early. Your vision wakes you before the sun. You no longer wrestle with consistency. Your identity demands it. So how do you find this purpose? You stop the noise. You sit in stillness. You ask, what was I made to contribute? You experiment with action. You write down goals, not for approval, but for alignment. Then you watch. Which of them stirs your spirit? Which ones make you move without pressure? That's your clue. Purpose is felt before it's understood. And once you sense it, you must build habits to honor it every single day. Imagine this: a man digging for gold. Many dig out of curiosity, but one dig because he knows the gold is there. He's seen it in his dream. He's felt it in his bones. His hands do not tire because his heart is convinced. And that's the difference. Conviction. So now ask yourself honestly, what are your habits serving? Are they tied to something real, or are they floating? If you don't know the answer, then the time to discover it is now. Once you connect your actions to your mission, everything else aligns. Pain becomes fuel, time becomes sacred, and your life begins to move with force. Your environment reflects your standards. Take a close look around you, not with casual eyes, but with the gaze of a man ready to rise. Observe the space you wake up in, the desk you sit at, the items you see every day, the people whose voices fill your hours. These are not coincidences. They are reflections, quiet, constant reflections of the standard you hold yourself to internally. A man does not need to speak of his values. His surroundings do the talking. His room, his tools, his schedule, his circle, all of it whispers or shouts his identity. Yet how many live in chaos and confusion, pretending it has no consequence? They wake up late, surrounded by clutter. Their homes are neglected, their plans disorganized. They tolerate drama, laziness, and distraction in the people closest to them, and then ask why their life feels heavy, stuck, just short of momentum. But life is always speaking. The results they're getting are not a mystery, they are a mirror. When you permit disorder in your environment, you send a signal to your mind. This is acceptable. This is what I deserve. And that quiet signal shapes your entire attitude. But when you demand more, when you clean with discipline, when you organize with intention, when you protect your peace from toxic influence, you begin to rise. Not just externally, but internally. You reinforce an identity of excellence. You begin to feel like someone who deserves more, because you act like someone who does. So how do you raise this standard? You begin by confronting your environment with honesty. Audit your space. Touch everything. Ask yourself, does this serve who I'm becoming? And if the answer is no, remove it without guilt, without delay. Whether it's an old item, a sloppy habit, or a person whose energy pulls you down, let it go. You're not throwing it away. You're making room for what belongs. Build a space that aligns with your vision. Design a daily flow that respects your time. Surround yourself with people who sharpen your thinking and challenge your weakness, not those who comfort your excuses. This is not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Imagine a warrior preparing for battle. Would he trust a dull blade? Would he walk into the storm with his armor scattered, his camp in disarray? Of course not. He would treat his environment like a reflection of his future. Everything in order. Every tool in place, every person beside him chosen for strength, loyalty, and clarity. This is how you must begin to live, not by accident, but by design. So ask yourself with real courage, what have I allowed to remain that weakens me? It could be an object, a habit, a person, a mindset. Your success is not only shaped by what you do, but by where you do it and with whom. The man who builds his environment with care builds a mind and a life that is impossible to shake. Repetition rewires the mind. The mind does not bend to brute force. It does not yield to a single act of willpower or a burst of sudden motivation. It responds to rhythm. It rewires through consistency, through the steady drumbeat of repetition. You cannot force your way into a new life in one dramatic leap. The mind is not a machine to be flipped into gear. It is a living field, one that must be cultivated with care, patience, and rhythm. You must till the soil of your thinking day after day until it begins to grow something new, and then tend to it until it blooms. This is where most men fall short. They begin with fire, but no fuel. They start a new habit, try a new mindset, speak a new affirmation, and when it doesn't yield instant results, they walk away. It didn't work, they say, as if change were a vending machine. But the mind doesn't respond to intensity. It responds to repetition. The brain is not looking for what is powerful, it's looking for what is familiar. And repetition creates that familiarity. Slowly, steadily, unshakably. Think of the first time you said something powerful to yourself, I am strong, or I will change. It felt foreign, false even. Your doubt argued, your old beliefs laughed, but that's not a sign of failure. It's a sign that your old programming is still in control. You don't defeat it by debating, you defeat it by outnumbering it. One truth repeated 1,000 times can drown out a lie you've believed for 20 years. It doesn't happen because you win the argument in your head. It happens because you rewrite the script. This is why your habits matter, not because of their intensity, but because of their rhythm. Wake up at the same time every day, not because it's hard, but because it's anchoring. Review your goals each morning, not because you forgot them, but because the repetition imprints them on your soul. Speak your affirmations, not as magic words, but as reminders to your brain of who you are becoming. Visualize the life you want, not to escape reality, but to program it into your nervous system as familiar. The goal is to get to a place where these truths feel so natural, so normal, that you cannot imagine life without them. Imagine a river carving its way through rock. It does not rush. It does not explode. It cuts through stone not by power, but by consistency. That is what you must become. Steady, daily, unwavering, not dramatic, but devoted. You win, not by force, but by rhythm. The rhythm of a man who has chosen what he wants to believe and is willing to repeat it until it becomes his nature. So the next time you feel stuck, discouraged, or impatient with your own progress, don't ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Ask a better question. Have I repeated the right things enough times? If the answer is no, then the solution is simple. Do not seek another secret. Do not chase a new method. Return to the rhythm. Speak it again. Train again. Visualize again. Wake up again. Until the new you isn't something you're trying to build. It's simply who you are. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Stop starting over. A man who keeps starting over becomes a man who never truly arrives. His life is a cycle, fueled by bursts of energy, stalled by waves of distraction. He gets inspired, takes the first step, maybe even a few more, but the moment it gets uncomfortable, inconvenient, or unexciting, he stops. Then he searches for something new to begin, a new plan, a new system, a new goal. He mistakes motion for progress. He confuses activity with direction, and so he spins not forward but in place. You might tell yourself you lack discipline, that if only you had more willpower, you'd follow through. But often, that's not the real issue. The deeper truth is a lack of commitment, not to the dream, but to the process. You begin things you believe in, but you don't stay with them long enough to see the reward. You plant a seed, then walk away the moment the soil doesn't give you instant fruit. You forget that every oak tree began as a buried seed, unseen, ignored, and slowly breaking through the ground. That requires patience. That requires presence. What if you didn't abandon the path this time? What if you resisted the temptation to switch directions just because it's hard or slow? What if instead of reaching for a new goal, you nurtured the one you already began? There's power in staying put. There's strength in consistency. And there's magic, real, lasting magic, in pushing through the invisible middle. That part no one sees. The part where nothing exciting happens, where it's all just repetition, routine, and silence. That's the forge where character is made. Most men never get there, not because they can't, but because they don't. They don't endure long enough. They don't let the process shape them. They think success is found in the spark, but it's built in the grind, in the quiet, uneventful, often thankless hours of persistence. The man who becomes great isn't always the most talented. He's often just the most committed. So how do you stop quitting? You close the door on the idea of quitting altogether. You stop treating your habits like hobbies. You stop showing up only when it feels good. You make it a vow, a sacred promise to yourself. You do it when you're tired, when it's boring, when no one claps. You do it not for the reward, but because it is who you are now. Because your identity is no longer tied to starting, it's tied to finishing. Picture a bridge, strong at one end but never completed. It stretches out beautifully, then stops mid-air, useless. That's how many men's lives look. Grand beginnings, flashy starts, but no destination reached. What does your bridge look like? Are you the man who lays every stone day after day, rain or shine, until the other side is crossed? Or are you just building in circles? Next time you feel the pull to chase something new, pause. Ask yourself, did I finish what I started? Or am I running from the hard part again? The middle is meant to test you. It's meant to separate the dreamers from the builders, the tourists from the travelers. You can start 100 things and still remain in the same place. Or you can finish just one and cross over into a life you've never known. Don't start over. Stay. Lay the next stone. The other side is waiting. Emotion follows motion. You've been taught that emotion must come first, that you must feel inspired before you act, feel motivated before you begin, feel ready before you commit. But that's a lie, a dangerous one, because emotion does not lead, it follows. It is not the driver of your life. It is the passenger. And if you wait for it to steer you, you'll sit idle while your dreams rot in the garage. The fastest way to change how you feel is to change what you do. Movement reshapes mindset. Action creates energy, not the other way around. You think the men who built empires, led nations, survived wars, and wrote masterpieces felt ready every morning? No, they moved anyway. They laced their boots, picked up the pen, gripped the sword, before their minds gave them permission. And it's in that gap between resistance and action where true power is born. The man who waits to feel right before doing what is right will never lead a powerful life. He'll become a slave to his own mood. He'll tell himself, I'll start tomorrow. I'll begin when I'm in the zone. I'll train when I feel strong. I'll lead when I feel confident. But that man is not in control. His emotions are the puppeteer, and he'll spend his life wondering why nothing ever takes root. Meanwhile, the man of discipline understands a different law. He knows that mood is a servant, never a master. He does not check in with his feelings before he moves. He moves, and his feelings adjust accordingly. This is the difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck. Greatness is never owned by the emotional. It is earned by the committed. So how do you use this? You build rituals that operate outside of your emotion. You design mornings, routines, decisions that are pre-committed. No thinking, no hesitating, just doing. You get out of bed before your mind offers excuses. You go for that walk before your brain begins to list reasons not to. You start writing before the perfect idea arrives. You start building while your confidence is still catching up. Because motion is the antidote to doubt. Every time you act without needing permission from your emotions, you prove to yourself who is in charge. Think of a fire. You want warmth, comfort, light, but you just sit there waiting to feel heat. You look at the wood, you dream about the blaze, you imagine how good it'll feel, but you never strike the match. You never crouch down and ignite the spark. And so you stay cold, miserable, full of potential and empty of progress. Why? Because you waited for the feeling before you made the move. But warmth comes after the flame, always. And it's not just fire, it's fitness, it's focus, it's faith, it's the book you haven't written, the business you haven't started, the apology you haven't made, the weight you haven't lost, the habit you haven't kept, the life you haven't lived, not because you can't, but because you're still waiting to feel like doing it. But life doesn't reward the hesitant. It rewards the man who acts anyway, the man who moves forward in the fog, the man who takes the next step before clarity, before certainty, before comfort. You don't wait for momentum, you create it. You don't beg your emotions to obey, you train them to follow. And once they learn that you act no matter what, they begin to align. The mood shifts, the inspiration comes, not at the start, but after. So now, ask yourself honestly, what have you delayed because you didn't feel ready? What project, habit, or responsibility are you waiting to feel right for? Stop waiting. Get up, begin, do the thing, not because you're inspired, but because you said you would. Let your body lead, and let your emotions follow. That is how you become powerful. That is how you take command. That is how you finally move. Motion is your medicine. Take the first dose. Your words sculpt your reality. You speak your world into being, whether you realize it or not. Every phrase you whisper when no one is listening, every muttered complaint under your breath, every quiet label you attach to yourself, these are the bricks. And with each one, you're building either a future of strength or a prison of limitation. Most men never see it happening. They speak without care, without thought, unaware that their tongue is crafting the boundaries of their life. A man says, "I'm not good with money," and wonders why he never gains wealth. He mutters, "I can't focus," and watches his attention weaken year after year. He jokes that he's lazy, undisciplined, unlucky, not the type to succeed. And though he laughs, his subconscious takes every word as law. What you repeat becomes a script, and what's rehearsed long enough eventually gets performed. You do not rise above the story you tell yourself, you grow into it. It's easy to blame circumstances, to say, "This is just how things are," or "I'm being honest." But honesty isn't just acknowledging what's real, it's choosing what to reinforce. And your words do more than describe your world, they design it. Words are not decoration, they are direction. They guide your energy, your decisions, your posture. The man who says, "I always figure it out," will behave differently than the man who says, "Things never go my way." One expects movement, the other expects resistance. Guess which one gets what he expects? The tragedy is that most men curse their own path without knowing it. They start their mornings complaining about how tired they are. They talk to friends about how stuck they feel. They narrate their lives with defeat, limitation, sarcasm, and passivity. Then they ask why motivation disappears, why nothing changes. But success cannot bloom in poisoned soil. You cannot speak weakness all day and expect to walk in strength. You cannot rehearse failure and expect to perform victory. So how do you change? You begin by listening to yourself. Not casually, but carefully. Monitor the labels you use. Watch the tone you take when talking about your work, your body, your mind, your future. Do you speak as the man you're becoming or as the man you're trying to escape? It takes discipline to interrupt the habit, but it is necessary, because every sentence repeated becomes a belief. Every belief repeated becomes a habit, and every habit repeated becomes identity. Start simple. Replace self-deprecating jokes with declarations of growth. Stop calling yourself broke, lazy, not a morning person. Even if it feels fake, speak what you want to be true. Say, "I'm getting stronger." Say, "I'm focused." Say, "I'm building something great," not because it's already visible, but because your words are laying the blueprint. You are not reporting reality. You are creating it. Picture a sculptor standing before raw marble. The final form is not yet visible, but he holds the vision. With each chisel, he moves closer to it. Each strike is small but deliberate, and eventually the vision appears. Your words are those strikes. Your daily phrases, your quiet affirmations, your internal dialogue, these are the tools in your hand. You may not see the statue yet, but it is being formed with every sentence you speak. And here's the secret. The moments when you least believe the words are the moments they matter most. Anyone can speak power when life is easy, but when circumstances contradict your words, that's when they begin to reshape you. Say, "I am disciplined," when you're tempted to break. Say, "I am capable," when life feels low. This isn't delusion, it's design. Words are not reflections of the past, they are commands to the future. So now, Ask yourself with brutal honesty, what have I been saying about myself lately? Not in front of others, but alone, in the mirror, in your mind. Is it building your strength or burying it? Are your words lifting you toward the man you were born to be, or chaining you to the one you're trying to leave behind? The mouth is not just for communication, it's for creation. Use it wisely, because the world you speak is the world you will walk into. Your evenings decide your mornings. What you do before you close your eyes holds the secret to how strong, clear, and focused you'll be when you open them. We are told success starts in the morning, with alarms, routines, cold showers, and early hustle. But this is only half the truth. The deeper truth, the one few acknowledge, is that a powerful morning starts the night before. The quality of your rest, the direction of your thoughts, the state of your soul before sleep, these shape not just your sleep, but your next self. You don't just wake up with strength, you prepare for it. You don't just stumble into clarity, you create it the night before. Yet most men waste their evenings. They collapse into bed not with peace, but with panic. Their minds race with guilt, regret, or the clutter of unfinished tasks. They drift into sleep the same way they drift through life, without guidance. And then they wake up confused, sluggish, and reactive, as if clarity and purpose should greet them like coffee on the table. But no fire rises from chaos. No clarity grows from mental noise. If you enter rest like a storm, don't expect to rise like a king. A wise man understands that the evening is not a break from his discipline. It is the final chapter of the day's command. He does not let go of his mind when the sun sets. He sharpens it. He does not stumble into sleep. He enters it with intention. His night is a ritual of review, realignment, and renewal. He prepares his inner world for restoration. He gives his mind permission to rest, not confusion to dwell in. So how does he do it? He takes inventory. He reflects on the day, not with harshness, but with honesty. He looks at what he did well, not just what he failed to do. He acknowledges his effort, his growth, and his movement, however small. Then he plans, he writes down tomorrow's aim, so his brain doesn't have to carry the weight of remembering it all night. He leaves no open loops. He gives his thoughts closure, and then he turns inward. He reads a few lines of wisdom, not headlines. He puts truth in his mind, not tension. He speaks a few words aloud, not to impress, but to program. I am strong, I am growing, I am ready. He says them not because he feels it, but because he chooses it. Because the words you fall asleep with are often the first ones your spirit listens to in the morning. What you whisper before you sleep becomes the rhythm of how you rise. Now imagine two men. Both go to bed at the same time. One lies in darkness, eyes open, replaying the day's arguments, failures, and stress. His body is still, but his mind is loud. The other man lights a candle, opens a notebook, and writes down the 3 things he's grateful for. He sketches out the key aim for tomorrow. He reads a page of wisdom. Then he closes his eyes, not from exhaustion, but from completion. One man escapes the day, the other closes it. Who do you think wakes up with more clarity, more strength, more readiness to attack the day? It is not the man who needed rest most. It is the man who prepared for it best. This is what separates the reactive from the powerful. The reactive man lets the day lead him, even into the night. The powerful man guides the day, all the way to its end. He understands that while he cannot always control how his morning begins, emergencies, interruptions, chaos, he can always control how the previous day ends. And that small control, repeated night after night, becomes an edge few possess. So ask yourself tonight, before your head hits the pillow, did I guide my day to the end, or did I simply let it run until I ran out of energy? Did I close the chapter with clarity, or did I let it trail off into confusion? The answer will show in how you wake up, not just in body, but in spirit. Make your evenings a ritual of mastery, not neglect. Let your final act each day be a return to yourself, because every new chapter of your life begins with the night that came before it. Sleep not just to rest, but to rise stronger. Break the loop of excuses. Excuses are elegant lies. They wear the disguise of logic. They sound responsible, even wise. But make no mistake, they are chains. Every time you say, I'm too tired, I don't have time, or I'll do it tomorrow, you are tightening those chains. Slowly, subtly, you are binding yourself to a smaller life. Excuses don't announce themselves as weakness. They whisper softly, wrapped in reason, in comfort, in stories you've told yourself for years. But underneath all of it, there is one truth. Excuses are the language of the undisciplined. The tragedy is that most people don't even realize they're speaking that language. They believe they are being honest. They believe they're explaining, but they're not explaining. They're stalling. They think they are defending their limits, but they are defending their prison. The moment you begin to justify inaction, you begin to accept mediocrity, not as a temporary delay, but as a permanent identity. The real problem isn't that you lack time, talent, or energy. It's not even that you face more obstacles than others. The real problem is that you've believed your excuses. You've repeated them so often they've become facts in your mind. You don't question them anymore. You carry them around like badges. I'm just not a morning person. I've always struggled with discipline. I'm too old to start now. But these aren't truths. They are mental habits, reflexes your mind has built to protect you from discomfort, risk, and responsibility. Growth is painful, so your brain, without asking your permission, builds defenses. Excuses are those defenses. They protect your comfort, but they kill your momentum. And every time you choose one, you stepped further away from the man you were meant to become. So how do you break this pattern? You expose it. You shine light into the dark corners of your mind where these excuses live. You stop letting them speak unchallenged. The moment you hear yourself say, "I don't feel like it," interrupt the thought. Speak over it. Say, "But I will do it anyway." When you say, "I'm too tired," respond, "And I'll do it tired." When the thought comes, "I'll start tomorrow," answer, "Tomorrow is the enemy. I start now." The mind must be trained to submit to command, not emotion. You do not need to feel like doing it. You need only to do it. Action, not emotion, is the measure of progress. The man who waits to feel right will wait his life away. But the man who acts, regardless of mood, becomes unstoppable. He becomes a force because every time he moves in spite of resistance, he is teaching his mind a new rule. You work for me now. Think of a general at war. His army faces cold, mud, fatigue, fear. If he allowed them to retreat every time the conditions were hard, the war would be lost before a single battle was fought. That's how most people live. They abandon their mission at the first sign of discomfort. They retreat when it rains. They fold when they're tired. They delay when the road looks uphill, but not you, not anymore. You are not in a battle for convenience. You are in a war for your future. You are not here to protect comfort. You are here to build character. And character is built every time you say no to an excuse and yes to action. No to fear and yes to movement. No to delay and yes to now. Make a vow today, not a hope, not a wish, but a vow. No more excuses, not spoken, not whispered, not even tolerated in your private thoughts. If one rises, crush it with command. Replace it with action. Prove to yourself moment by moment that your discipline is stronger than your doubt. You are not here to justify mediocrity. You are here to rise above it. The man you want to become is already waiting for you, but he cannot be reached through he is only found through courage, through decision, through relentless forward motion. So ask yourself honestly, what have you been excusing? What goal, what habit, what higher standard have you postponed with reasons that sound clever but kill progress? Today, you bury those reasons. Today, you become the kind of man who doesn't wait to feel right, doesn't beg for perfect conditions, doesn't explain his delay. He acts, he moves, he becomes. Because when you eliminate excuses, you eliminate limitations. And in that space, finally, you will rise. Stop feeding the old identity. The reason your new life hasn't begun is painfully simple. You are still feeding the old one. You say you want change. You say you're ready for discipline, wealth, strength, peace, and purpose. But when the door to the new opens, you walk through with the old you still clinging to your back. The old habits, the old excuses, the old language, the old rhythms. You want new results while maintaining old rituals. You want to evolve, but you won't stop honoring the identity you claim you've outgrown. Every time you hit snooze, you obey the old self. Every time you scroll instead of study, avoid instead of confront, complain instead of act, you give him breath. You resurrect him, and every time you do, the new self, the one you're trying to become, weakens. The man who says, "I want to be disciplined," but still entertains laziness, is speaking a divided language. He's declaring one truth and living another. And in that conflict, there is no freedom, only delay. Change is not a statement. It's not a feeling. It's not a journal entry or a sudden decision made at midnight after watching a motivational video. Change is a funeral. It is the burial of the old self. It is the severing of the contracts you signed with weakness. The only way forward is to starve what you no longer want to be. But here's the truth. What you've been doesn't just disappear quietly. It resists. It pleads. The old identity is familiar, and familiarity feels like safety. The old you knows how to comfort you. He knows your fears. He speaks the language of excuses that once made sense. You've had a long day, he says. You can start tomorrow. One more time won't hurt. He whispers like a friend, but he is not one. He is the anchor tied around your ankle, wrapped in the voice of your own comfort. Comfort, that liar. It has one job, to keep you still. It doesn't care about your goals. It doesn't care about your destiny. It only wants your loyalty. And it will trade you peace for stagnation. It will tell you this isn't hurting you, while it slowly kills your future. It will keep you in circles, in cycles, in habits that feel harmless but are fatal to your growth. So how do you break free? You stop showing up for the past. You stop performing the old rituals. You stop giving time, energy, and attention to the version of you that failed. When the temptation comes to act like the man you used to be, you respond as the man you're becoming. You make decisions not based on where you've been, but based on where you're going. You stop moving like him. You stop speaking like him. You stop thinking like him. You act as if the new you already exists, because in action, identity is born. The mind will catch up to movement, and if you move like the disciplined man, the strong man, the wealthy man, the focused man, soon that is who you become. Picture this. You say you're building a new house. You tell everyone that your old one no longer serves you. You even put up a sign that says, "New life under construction," but every night you sneak back into the old place. You light the fire, you pay the rent, you sleep in the same bed, and repeat the same rituals. And you wonder why the new house still feels like a dream instead of a home. It's because you haven't left. You haven't cut the cord. Progress demands disloyalty to your past. You cannot hold on to the old while reaching for the new. One must die so the other can live. And death is not easy. It requires clarity. It requires saying, "That's not me anymore," and meaning it, not in thought, but in behavior. So ask yourself tonight, are you still feeding the version of you that failed? Are you still giving him meals in the form of procrastination, complaining, comfort, and inconsistency? Or are you starving him so the new one can thrive? Transformation begins the moment you refuse to entertain the old pattern. When you say, "He doesn't live here anymore." When you stop speaking in the tongue of defeat. When you walk past the old door without even knocking. The new you is not waiting for you to be ready. He's waiting for you to walk away from the version of yourself who keeps pretending to want change while secretly preserving the comfort of failure. Let the old self starve. Let him fade. Let the man you've always known you could be take the stage, not someday, but now. Focus is a habit, not a trait. Focus is not a gift. It is not some rare trait reserved for monks or masterminds. It is not in your DNA, not in your bloodline, and not granted by luck. It is trained. It is built in the furnace of choice, repetition, and refusal. And like all real training, it begins with elimination. Before you can sharpen your focus, you must cut away the noise that's dulling it. Most people don't live in chaos because they lack intelligence. They live in chaos because they've never learned how to clear the space around their attention. Their minds are overfed but under-disciplined. They start one task, then check a notification. They begin a project, then chase a new idea. They look busy, they feel overwhelmed. But at the end of the day, nothing meaningful gets finished. They don't run out of time, they run out of clarity. But the man who wins, the man who builds, leads, and rises, isn't the one who juggles the most. He's the one who finishes what matters. He doesn't live by stimulation. He lives by completion. He doesn't try to do everything. He commits to what counts. And once committed, he doesn't flinch. He doesn't wander. He doesn't escape when it gets difficult. He digs in. He protects his time and his attention like treasure because he understands one truth. Where your focus goes, your life follows. Focus isn't about force. It's about respect. Respect for your own potential. Respect for your limited time on this earth. When you treat your time like it's infinite, you waste it. When you treat your attention like it's a toy, the world plays with it. But when you begin to see focus as a discipline, a sacred discipline, you stop letting distractions control your life. So how do you build it? You create boundaries. Real ones. Not just ideas. Not just intentions. Walls. You carve out time for deep work and guard it like your life depends on it. Because in a way, it does. You remove distractions not with hope but with force. You shut the door. You tell your mind, this is where I'm needed, and here I stay. And when your attention tries to wander, you don't negotiate. You command it back, again and again and again, until it learns that you are the master, not the servant. Imagine a blacksmith forging a blade. He doesn't leave the fire every 5 minutes to check the wind. He doesn't pause his hammer to reply to every knock at the door. He stands firm. He watches the steel. He hammers with intensity, with rhythm, with full presence. That's how a blade is made. That's how focus is trained. You must treat your tasks with that same reverence. Don't just start them, finish them. Don't just work on them, work through them. Stay in the fire. When you feel the pull to check something else, to shift to another task, to take a quick break, recognize it for what it is, an escape disguised as productivity. Don't chase stimulation, chase completion, because that's what separates motion from progress. That's what builds momentum. Focus isn't a mood. It's not a feeling. It's a decision. And it's one you must remake every hour, every day, until it becomes who you are. You must become the man who finishes what he starts. Who doesn't break his own promises just because something else looks easier? The man who's trusted to lead, to build, to win is the man who has trained his focus into a blade that cuts through distraction. So take an honest look. What do your days look like? Are you finishing what you start, or letting your attention scatter like leaves in a storm? Are you acting with intent or reacting out of habit? Are you in control or are you being controlled? Focus is not found, it is forged. It is not something you discover one day, it is something you become through deliberate action, through ruthless elimination, through fierce commitment to your mission. And once you make focus your discipline, everything changes. Your work sharpens, your confidence grows, your days become cleaner, simpler, more powerful. You stop spinning, you start building. So remember this. Distraction is weakness in disguise, and every time you indulge it, you choose to stay ordinary. But every time you resist it, every time you stay on the fire, you carve yourself into someone who cannot be moved. Make focus your discipline, and the world will begin to respect your work, because the world doesn't follow the scattered, it follows the steady. Be the one who stays. Consistency is the most respected currency. Anyone can be great for a day. Anyone can rise once, shine once, show the world a glimpse of their potential once. But the men who build legacies, who craft lives of meaning, who carry power in their presence, those men are not defined by their bursts of brilliance. They are defined by what they do repeatedly, especially when no one's watching. The spotlight may come and go, applause may fade, but the one who shows up day after day without excuse, that man becomes unstoppable. We live in a world addicted to drama, flashy beginnings, viral moments, instant wins. But real transformation isn't forged in explosions, it's built in quiet, ordinary days, stacked together with purpose. You don't earn power by showing up once. You earn it by showing up regardless. When you're tired, when it's boring, when the feeling is gone, and all that remains is the voice inside saying, do it anyway. That's consistency. That's strength. Consistency builds momentum, and momentum is everything. It's the invisible force that turns effort into rhythm. It rewires the mind. Every time you show up, you send a message to yourself. This is who I am now. It removes the internal debate. It silences the question, should I? Because it's already answered. You don't need to decide. You've already decided. You show up. But here's where most people fall into the trap. They confuse consistency with motivation. They wait for the perfect mood, the spark of inspiration, the emotional push to begin. They say, I just don't feel it today, and so they don't act. But consistency is not about feeling, it's about commitment. Motivation is a spark. It comes and goes. It's useful, but it's undependable. It's emotional weather, sometimes sunny, sometimes stormy, often unpredictable. But consistency, that's the flame that stays lit, even in the rain. The men who understand this shift their entire mindset. They stop treating discipline as something they need to feel into. They treat it as identity, not a choice, but a command, not a decision, but a standard. They don't need perfect conditions, they just need to begin. And how do you begin? You lower the threshold. You stop aiming for perfection. You aim for presence. You don't need to write 10 pages today, write one. You don't need to crush a 2-hour workout, train for 20 minutes. But whatever you do, don't skip, never skip. Because skipping sends a message too. It says, my emotions are stronger than my commitment. It says, I act only when I feel like it, and once that becomes a habit, you will be a prisoner to your mood forever. Imagine a mason standing before an empty field. No one is watching. There are no cameras, no grand audience, just bricks, mortar, and his hands. He lays one brick, then the next, then another. Day after day he returns. Some days it rains, some days he's sore, some days he's tired, but he never skips. Slowly, quietly, a wall rises, and one day, without fanfare, a fortress stands. Meanwhile, others sprint for a week, build half a wall, then vanish. They come back later, tear it down, start again, and wonder why nothing stands firm. But the mason, he just kept laying bricks. That's consistency. Consistency is boring. It's unglamorous. It doesn't get likes. But it builds everything. It's the only way to create real mastery, and it's the only way to outlast the obstacles, the critics, and even your own excuses. Because in the end, talent fades, motivation fades, energy fades, but consistency, done right, outlasts everything. So the question isn't how talented are you or how inspired do you feel. The question is brutally simple. Did you show up today? Did you honor the work even in silence? Did you keep the value made to yourself even when no one would have known if you skipped? Because that's where the real self is built. In the small, invisible acts of consistency. In the brick laid on the day when laying it felt pointless. In the sentence written when no genius visited your mind. In the steps taken when your legs were heavy and your mind begged you to rest. Show up, not once, not twice, always. Because the man who shows up every day, no matter how he feels, becomes the man who can do anything. And that, in the end, is how greatness is made. Quietly, repeatedly, unshakably, one brick at a time. Your body reflects your discipline. Your body is not just a vessel. It is a reflection of who you are. It reflects your choices, your discipline, your energy, your values. It tells the truth about your routines when your words do not. A man cannot expect to carry a sharp, focused, disciplined mind in a body that is constantly tired, neglected, and slow. A sluggish body breeds a sluggish will, and a tired frame cannot carry the weight of a powerful vision. You may try to separate your physical condition from your mental and spiritual strength, but the split is a lie. The body and mind are not rivals, they are allies. What you do to one always affects the other. Look closely at the lives of strong, focused men. Not just athletes, but leaders, builders, creators. Their mental resilience is reinforced by their physical readiness. When you train the body, you do far more than shape the external. Every push, every repetition, every bead of sweat does more than sculpt the muscle. It forges the man. Each time you resist the urge to quit, to sleep in, to skip the hard thing, you grow stronger in places no mirror can show. You build command over yourself. You prove that your will is stronger than your weakness. And that command doesn't end in the gym, it bleeds into every area of your life. You begin to approach work with more drive. You speak with more clarity. You sit straighter, breathe deeper, walk with greater presence. You stop tolerating laziness, not just in others, but in yourself. And in a world where most people have surrendered to comfort, your discipline becomes your edge. Yet still most postpone. They say, I'll begin when life settles down. I'm not really the athletic type. I just don't have time. But discipline doesn't come from having the right body. It comes from moving the one you have. It doesn't begin with biology. It begins with motion. Your body is moldable. Your energy is trainable. And your will, it is sharpened one rep, one walk, one breath at a time. You don't need to start with an intense routine. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. But you must begin, rise early. Before the world has a chance to ask for your energy, give it to yourself. Move your body, stretch it, challenge it, breathe deep. Feel your own strength, even if it's not yet where you want it to be. Because when the blood moves, the mind follows. You become clearer, more grounded, more alive. You remember that you're not just a thinker or a dreamer. You are a builder. And the first thing you build is yourself. Train, not to impress others, but to express who you are. You are not here to shrink, to hide, to become soft. You are here to carry a mission. And for that, you need a body that can carry weight. Not just physical weight, but the emotional, mental, spiritual weight that comes with responsibility, leadership, and legacy. Imagine a warrior preparing for battle, a man on horseback, about to ride into danger. Would he neglect his steed? Let it grow weak, slow, undisciplined? Of course not. He sharpens it, he trains it, he feeds it with care, and moves it with purpose. He does not see the horse as separate from the fight. It is the fight. It is what will carry him into the storm. Your body is that steed. Your future will demand everything from you. Will your body be ready to carry it? And this isn't about appearance. This isn't about having six-pack abs or running marathons. This is about respect. Respect for the machine that will carry your mind, your mission, and your legacy. Because once you start to honor your body, not worship it, but respect it, it changes how you operate. You stop eating like a man with no vision. You stop sleeping like a man who doesn't care. You stop dragging yourself through life like a worn-out engine, and you begin to live like a man who is ready. So ask yourself, when was the last time you truly honored your body? Not as decoration, but as a tool for greatness. When did you last challenge it, strengthen it, stretch it, move it like it was meant for more than sitting and scrolling and surviving? You don't need to be perfect, but you must be present. Show up in your own body, live inside it, breathe into it, train it, not because you're broken, but because you are becoming. Don't let your body become an afterthought. Don't let it grow dull while your dreams grow sharp. Because in the end, every vision you hold, every challenge you face, every success you build will be carried out through your body. Make it strong, make it steady, make it ready. Because discipline does not begin in the clouds. It begins in the flesh, and from there it flows into your future. Energy is managed, not found. You don't find energy, you direct it. You don't sit around and wait for the stars to align, for motivation to arrive, or for the perfect circumstances to awaken your spirit. Energy is not a gift granted to the lucky or the naturally driven. It is a force that must be channeled, commanded, and assigned. The most successful men are not those who feel powerful every moment. They are those who decide where their power goes. And they know that energy, like time, must be distributed with intention. And the man who does not control his energy will always be controlled by everything around him. Look closely at most people. Watch how they spend a day. You'll notice something tragic. They leak energy. Not in great dramatic bursts, but in constant drips that go unnoticed until they're empty. They waste it on petty annoyances. They spend it on decisions that don't matter. They argue about things that have no bearing on their vision. They respond to every distraction, engage in every notification, participate in every minor frustration as if it deserves their full presence. And by the time they return to what truly matters, if they return at all, they are already depleted. They've given their best to what never deserved it, and they try to build their future on the leftovers. This is how men arrive at their goals, already exhausted. It's not because the work is too hard. It's because they've handed away their energy to everything but the work. You don't run out of energy, you misplace it. And you will never reach greatness if your energy is scattered before it ever meets your mission. But imagine something different. Imagine what happens when you begin to guard your energy like treasure. When you rise in the morning and claim your day with authority. You say, this is where my energy goes today, no more, no less. You stop offering it to anything that doesn't serve your growth. Suddenly, fatigue no longer owns you. You don't stumble through your hours drained and confused. You don't live at the mercy of interruptions or moods, because now you're in command. And how do you take that command? You begin by eliminating what drains you. That means cutting out unnecessary decisions. What to wear, what to eat, when to begin. You simplify, you standardize, you automate what doesn't require creativity so your mind is free for what does. You remove the clutter, mental, physical, emotional, that eats away at your strength. You say no to chaos, and you say yes to clarity. You set a focus for each day, not 10, not 5, 1. One thing that deserves your full presence. You decide what deserves your energy, because not everything does. Not everyone gets a response. Not every irritation gets your reaction. And the more you move from intention, the less you move from impulse. This is not about being cold or distant. It's about building a mind and a life that reflects purpose. Because purpose is not just about having a goal. It's about having the power to protect the pursuit of that goal. And energy is the fuel for that pursuit. Picture a farmer. He has a handful of seeds, limited in number, valuable in purpose. If he gets careless and scatters them across rock and weeded soil, he might feel busy, he might feel productive, but at harvest, he will have little to show. His work was real, but his focus was wasted. But if he chooses rich soil, if he plants with precision, if he waters with consistency, his harvest multiplies. His reward grows. Your energy is no different. You only have so much, and if you give it to every irritation, every small distraction, every unworthy commitment, you are scattering it across rock. But if you assign it, guard it, and plant it where it can grow, your return becomes extraordinary. So pause for a moment. Reflect honestly. Where did your energy go yesterday? Did you give your best hours to your deepest purpose or to trivial demands? Did you pour your focus into your mission, or do you let the world pull it apart? And now ask, where will it go today? Not in theory, in action. Will you spend your morning in reactive patterns, or will you claim the first hours for yourself? Will you command your energy like a man who understands that his future depends on it? Your energy is your power, it is your currency, and the way you spend it will write the story of your life. Waste it and you will live tired. Focus it and you will live ready. Decide, assign, protect, and direct your energy like a man who knows it is limited and who chooses to use it where it matters most. Because you don't run out of power by working hard. You run out by living scattered. And the man who learns to master his energy will not just survive, he will rise. Every single day, rebuild your self-image through action. You will never rise above the picture you carry of yourself. That image, the silent, invisible portrait of who you think you are, shapes everything. Your decisions, your reactions, your habits. It determines how much effort you put in, how long you stay in the fight, how you handle success, and how you deal with setbacks. You may have goals that are enormous, plans that are brilliant, and talents that are rare. But if your inner image whispers, you're not the type, you will find a way to fail. Not because you wanted to, but because the subconscious mind always obeys what it believes to be true, even if that belief is false. This is the reason so many men sabotage themselves. They think they're just unlucky. They think they lack willpower or discipline. They think it's a problem of motivation. But often what's really happening is that their actions are being pulled back into alignment with an old image. You can only outperform your self-concept for so long before it pulls you back. The man who sees himself as weak will eventually prove himself right, even if he has a moment of strength. The man who sees himself as undisciplined may start a routine, but he'll quit just when it begins to count. Not because he wants to, because he believes he has no choice. But here's the secret, the truth that changes everything. Your self-image is not fixed. It can be rebuilt. You are not bound to the old portrait. The man in the mirror is not finished. He's clay. And you have the tools to reshape him. You don't do it with affirmations alone. Words help, yes, but they cannot stand alone. You rebuild the picture with action. Every time you do something strong, disciplined, noble, or clear, you send a signal to the deepest part of your mind. This is who I am now, and with each signal, the image begins to shift. Slowly, subtly, but certainly. The lines begin to blur and reshape, and one day, you don't just act disciplined, you are disciplined. You don't just do what strong men do, you see yourself as one. So why do most people fail to change this image? Because they try to think their way out of an identity that was built through action. You can't overthink a pattern that was created by years of behavior. You can't lecture your way out of self-doubt. You must act first, then believe. The mind follows the body, not the other way around. You must move even when the inner voice says, you're not that kind of man, especially then. Act as if, not to pretend, but to become. Act as if you are already the man you aspire to become. Speak how he would speak. Move how he would move. Choose what he would show up. At first, it feels like a lie. It feels forced. Your old self-image resists, but if you keep going, if you keep doing, something changes. Your subconscious watches. And eventually it accepts the new data. The image evolves. And once the image changes, your behavior no longer feels like effort, it feels like truth. Start simple. You don't need a revolution, you need a moment, a promise kept. One small, specific, exact promise to yourself today. Maybe it's rising on time. Maybe it's training when you said you would. Maybe it's writing a single paragraph. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you complete it, not for the result, but for the message it sends. I do what I say. And that message becomes a brick, another brick in the foundation of a new identity. And do it when it's hard. That's when the reconstruction really begins. When the old image screams, skip it, and you do it anyway. When the fatigue says not today, and you show up anyway. That's when the shift happens, not in comfort, but in contradiction. Every time you do what the older version of you would have avoided, you chip away at his control. You weaken his grip. You break his frame, and you begin to build a new one. Imagine a sculptor standing before a block of stone. From the outside, it looks solid, unshaped, unformed. But the sculptor sees more. He sees through the stone. He believes there's something greater beneath. And with each strike, each chip, each swing of the chisel, he declares, there is more here. He doesn't stop when it gets tough. He doesn't panic when the shape isn't yet clear. He keeps going, knowing that with enough pressure, the vision inside the stone will emerge. That is how you must approach your old self. He is the stone. You are the sculptor. Each action is a chisel. Every time you show up, every time you choose discipline, every time you say no to the old pattern and yes to the new one, you are shaping the man you were meant to become. And one day, that man appears. Not because you hoped for him, but because you built him. So stop waiting to feel like him. Act like him. Let the image follow the action. Let the belief follow the behavior. Start small. Start today. Now ask yourself with clarity and courage, what does the man I want to become do daily? What are his rituals? How does he handle pressure? What does he do when no one's watching? What does he prioritize? Now go do that. Not someday, now. Because every action is a vote, and the man you become is the one you vote for most often. Make your vote count. The image will follow, and when it does, you will never be the same. Protect your mind like a fortress. Your mind is your kingdom. It is the seat of your power, the origin of every word you speak, every step you take, every life you shape, including your own. And like any kingdom, it must be guarded. What enters it stays. What stays builds. And what builds eventually rules. If you do not stand guard at the gate, the world will walk in unannounced. It will leave its dust, its poison, its confusion scattered across the halls of your mind. And soon, you'll wake up in a castle that no longer feels like home. Most men live unaware of this invasion. They wonder why they feel off, unmotivated, disoriented. Why they start the day with hope and end it with heaviness. Why their confidence fades without warning. But the answer is simple. They let anything in. They allow opinions, fears, doubts, and distractions to march into their kingdom unchecked. They confuse entertainment with nourishment. They absorb every joke, every headline, every mindless scroll, and then they wonder why their own thoughts feel foreign. Their mind becomes a noisy marketplace, open to all, owned by none. But the powerful man is different. He doesn't leave the gates wide open. He knows the value of his mind. He understands that it is not neutral ground. It is a battlefield. And if he is not the one standing guard, someone else will occupy the space. A powerful man does not let everything in. He selects. He questions. He reflects. His mind is not a dumping ground. It is a fortress. And why does this matter? Because every thought you entertain writes a line in your future. The mind does not know the difference between a joke and a judgment, between sarcasm and truth, between self-deprecation and self-destruction. It simply absorbs. And what it absorbs, it repeats. What it repeats, it begins to believe. And what it believes, it starts to build. You've seen it yourself. A man tells himself he's not smart enough, just a joke at first, a throwaway line in a conversation, but then he says it again, then again. Soon, it becomes a filter. He hesitates when he should speak. He withdraws when he should lead. And he doesn't even realize that the source of his hesitation isn't reality, it's the quiet repetition of an unguarded thought. This is how the mind works. It does not discriminate. It simply reflects what you feed it. And if you don't take control of the feeding, the world will do it for you. So how do you guard your mind? You become selective. You treat your thoughts with the same discernment a king would show to those requesting audience. You ask, who sent you? What do you want? Do you deserve to stay? You choose your conversations. You become aware of the words you allow to land. You stop participating in gossip, not just out of morality, but out of strategy. Because gossip weakens the mind. It trains you to focus on what does not matter. It steals energy from your purpose and trades it for petty analysis of others. You avoid trivial talk, small minds, and loud opinions with no wisdom behind them. You become ruthless in your input, not because you fear the world, but because you value your clarity. You read that which lifts you. You listen to that which sharpens you. You place your mind in front of teachers, thinkers, warriors, and sages, not clowns, cowards, and critics. And most importantly, you spend time in silence, not as escape, but as strategy. Silence is where the mind becomes visible. In silence, you learn the sound of your own thoughts. You hear the patterns. You recognize the invaders. You become aware of the beliefs you've never questioned, the ones shaping your life without your permission. The world is loud, and it's relentless. If you do not carve out moments of quiet, your mind will never be your own. You will live in reaction. But when you make time for silence, not once a year, not once a month, but daily, you begin to rule your own thoughts. You reclaim the throne. Picture a castle gate. A single soldier stands post, day and night. He inspects every traveler, asks every purpose, checks every name. No one passes unless the gatekeeper approves. That is how you must protect your thoughts, with vigilance, with strength, with unwavering standards. Nothing enters unless it serves you, unless it sharpens you, unless it belongs in the mind of the man you are becoming. So now I ask you, who or what have you allowed to shape your thoughts this week? Who did you listen to? What did you absorb without filter? What beliefs did you adopt without question? Did you guard the gate, or did you fall asleep at your post? This matters more than you think, because your mind is not just where you think, it's where you build. It is where you form the architecture of your actions, where you develop the frameworks that determine how you show up in every room. If your mind is sharp, your life becomes focused. If your mind is soft, your life becomes scattered. And no amount of hustle can fix a mind that has been hijacked. Your mind is your most powerful weapon, and the world knows it. That's why it fights for your attention. That's why it fills your feed with fear. That's why it bombards you with noise. Because a man whose mind is distracted is easy to control. But a man whose mind is guarded, he is dangerous, he is unpredictable, he is free. So build the fortress. Inspect the gates. Choose your inputs. And remember, what enters, stays. What stays, builds. And what builds, becomes you. Do not let the world write your script. Write it yourself, with clarity, with conviction, like a king guarding his kingdom. The future you want already exists. In the habits you refuse, you say you want more. More clarity, more discipline, more success. You say it with conviction, you say it with hunger, but the truth lives not in your words. It lives in your routine. And when your routine contradicts your desire becomes delusion. You speak of big dreams, but you act on small impulses. You talk about purpose, but your mornings begin with delay. You crave transformation, but refuse to give up comfort. And that, right there, is the quiet contradiction that's killing your progress. A man's future is not something he discovers one day like buried treasure. It's something he builds, brick by brick, day by day. He builds it through repetition, through structure, through discipline when it's dull, and through effort when it's inconvenient. He builds it not on the days when it's easy, but on the days when it isn't. The future isn't hiding from you. It's not buried in mystery. It's standing in plain sight, outlined in the habits you've either chosen or avoided. Yet most men stand still, hoping life will somehow bend to their desire. They wait for clarity before they move. They wait for discipline to feel easy. They wait for the right time to begin. But time is the lie. Time is the illusion. It whispers, you have more. You can change tomorrow. And so they keep living the same day, the same week, the same life, expecting one day to wake up in a different place. But nothing changes until the routine does. You don't rise to the level of your dreams, you fall to the level of your patterns. And if your patterns are ruled by comfort, by delay, by distraction, then your potential will always remain potential, unused, unfulfilled, unlived. You can't claim to want freedom while remaining loyal to your chains. You can't speak about greatness while protecting the habits that make you mediocre. So how do you break out? How do you step off the loop that keeps spinning you back into your old self? You begin by connecting your vision with your discipline. You stop chasing inspiration and start demanding obedience from yourself. You stop hoping your mind will cooperate and start commanding it. You craft a day so powerful, so intentional, so aligned that it can't be ignored. And you start not by rearranging your life, but by aligning your smallest habit with your highest aim. This is the mistake most men make. They wait for a grand plan, a dramatic shift. But transformation is not built on drama, it's built on repetition. On that one habit done daily that seems too small to matter, done poorly at first, done imperfectly, but done relentlessly, because each repetition is a vote, and the man you become is the one you vote for most often. Imagine a man who says he wants to cross the ocean. He speaks about the horizon. He describes the ships he'll build, the lands he'll see. He studies the currents. He dreams of the voyage. But each day he turns and walks deeper into the woods. He may be sincere, but he is sincerely moving in the wrong direction. His words do not align with his movement, and that, no matter how poetic it sounds, leads nowhere. Your goals demand more than hope. They demand new behavior. They require sacrifice. They call for trade-offs. You will have to let go of ease. You will have to say no to things that offer short-term comfort. You will have to be misunderstood, unrecognized, and uncelebrated for long stretches. Because greatness isn't loud, it is quiet. It is built when no one is watching. You have to decide that your highest aim is worth the discomfort of discipline, that your long-term identity matters more than your momentary impulses, that showing up matters more than being in the mood, that you are not here to wait. You are here to build. So ask yourself with brutal honesty, what habit, if practiced daily for 1 year, would change everything? You already know what it is. Maybe it's waking up early. Maybe it's writing. Maybe it's training. Whatever it is, it has already been whispering to you. Now ask the second question. Why haven't you begun? Don't answer with excuses. Don't speak of time or energy or readiness. Answer with truth. The real answer is this. You haven't begun because it's easier not to. Because the old you still has influence, because you're addicted to familiarity, because changing a habit means changing an identity, and that scares you more than you admit. But let this be the moment where you stop negotiating with weakness. Let this be the moment where you realize the future is not out there. It is being built right now in the decisions you make today. Your life will not transform because of a grand idea. It will transform because you woke up and did the thing you didn't want to do, and then you did it again and again until one day it wasn't a task, it was a trait, not an act, but your identity. Your future is being drafted not by your dreams, but by your discipline. And your discipline is decided not by what you say, but by what you repeat. So build the day, build the habit, and let that habit shape the man. Because every excuse is a nail in the coffin of your potential, and every act of discipline is a brick in the foundation of your future. Lay the brick today, then do it again tomorrow. And let your life rise, one aligned day at a time. Change your habits, change your life. This is where everything you've ever wanted begins. Not in a distant future, not in some elusive opportunity, and not with a stroke of luck. It begins with you, with the smallest things you do every single day. It begins with your habits. You can dream, you can visualize, you can write down goals and speak affirmations until your throat runs dry. But unless your actions align with the future you say you want, nothing will change. The truth is simple. Your habits are the bricks with which you build your destiny. They are not optional. They are not decorative. They are structural. And if your life feels weak, if it crumbles under pressure, it is because the foundation, your habits, were never truly built for the weight of the life you claim to desire. You are not controlled by fate. You are not bound by how you were raised or by the circumstances you were handed. You are shaped moment by moment by the patterns you repeat without even thinking. Wake up late, complain before creating, scroll before stretching, then don't be surprised when your days feel hollow, your energy low, and your purpose unclear, because that's what those habits earn you. But if you change even one of them, truly change it, you begin to move the needle of your life. A man doesn't become strong by lifting a mountain. He becomes strong by lifting small weights consistently. Discipline isn't built in a single moment of inspiration. It's formed in quiet repetition. And your life, it's not changed by a breakthrough. It's shaped by the things you repeat when no one is watching. Change doesn't arrive on its own. It doesn't care about your wishes. It doesn't respond to hope. Change must be commanded through decisions backed by action. This is the part no one wants to hear because it's not glamorous. It doesn't come with applause. It comes with early mornings, silent evenings, and daily commitments that feel boring, thankless, and small. But make no mistake, those small acts are what forge a new identity. And when your identity changes, so does your destiny. Because the world doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to who you are. If you think like a victim, you'll attract problems. If you act like a leader, you'll begin to command influence. If you discipline your mind, your results will eventually reflect that order. But it all begins with that critical question, who am I becoming with the habits I currently follow? Sit with that, not as a thought exercise, as a life-altering reflection. Because you cannot build a future you're not practicing for. It's impossible. A man who wants freedom but practices addiction will only deepen his chains. A woman who wants confidence but rehearses self-doubt will only amplify her insecurity. Your habits are rehearsals. Rehearsals for the life you're training your mind and body to expect. So be honest. What are you rehearsing? You need no more information, no more motivation. What you need is commitment. You need to stop entertaining the fantasy of change without sacrifice. You need to declare war on your distractions. You need to remove the debate around things you already know you must do. Because the more you negotiate with weakness, the stronger it gets. A new habit doesn't need a celebration. It needs a decision. One that says, this is who I am now, and I don't compromise that, not for comfort, not for convenience, not for company. One step each morning, one choice aligned with your future, one routine that supports, not sabotages your mission. Over time, these small things add up. They become a force. Like a drop of water, over time they wear down what once seemed immovable. And suddenly, without fanfare, your life starts to change. Think of a sculptor chipping away at marble. It looks like nothing. It looks like madness. But slowly, with patience and pressure, something begins to emerge. Something that wasn't there before, but was always possible. Your habits are the chisel. Your life is the marble. And every decision you make is either bringing your vision into form or burying it deeper in stone. You must become deliberate. You must become a craftsman of your days. Stop waking up hoping to feel motivated. You won't. That's not how this works. Greatness isn't built on mood. It's built on clarity. And clarity begins when you ask this question every single day. What would the man I wish to become do right now? Then you do that, even if it's hard, especially if it's hard. This is how identity is built. Not through revelation, but repetition. You don't become trustworthy by accident. You become trustworthy by keeping promises even to yourself. You don't become confident by being praised. You become confident by earning your own respect through follow-through. Day by day, decision by decision, you construct the version of you that can carry your dream. And once you become that person, everything begins to shift. You don't have to chase people, they start coming to you. You don't have to beg for opportunities, they begin to notice your presence, not because you shout it, but because you showed up. You lived it. You proved it. You repeated what others were too inconsistent to finish. And that is what sets you apart. You must stop waiting for a sign. This is the sign. You already know what's not working. You already know what needs to change. The question is not what to do, it's whether you will begin. Not tomorrow, not next Monday, now, in this moment. Because your future is not waiting patiently, it is being shaped by your current behavior. And if that truth doesn't light a fire in you, you're not hungry enough yet. But when it does, you'll realize this: the smallest act done with discipline is greater than the grandest dream delayed by doubt. So I ask you again, one final question. If you knew without any hesitation that changing your habits would change your life, what excuse would you still be holding? Would you say you're tired? Then know this: doing nothing drains you more than progress ever will. Would you say you're unsure? Then clarity comes from action, not before it. Would you say you're waiting for the right time? Then remember, time doesn't wait for you. It passes regardless. The question is not whether life will move. It will. The question is whether you will move with it, consciously, courageously, and consistently. Your habits are not small. They are everything. They are the whispers of your future calling out, will you rise or will you repeat? And so I leave you with this: no more waiting, no more postponing, no more negotiating with weakness. The time is now. The power is in your hands. Your life will not be changed by chance, but by choice. And the choices you make daily are the ones that write your future. Now begin. You must create before you consume. A man with ambition must learn a sacred discipline. Build before you absorb. Before the world has a chance to invade your thoughts, before the messages, the headlines, the scrolling noise of 1,000 other voices, you must create. Not because it's trendy, not because someone told you to journal, but because creation is how you plant your own flag into the soil of the day. You must begin your day with your voice, your mind, your intention. That is how you own your morning, before the world attempts to own you. And you wonder why you feel distracted, scattered, reactive instead of proactive? It's because the first voice in your day wasn't yours. Let this be your wake-up call. Your first act of the day must be creation, not consumption. Write a sentence, sketch an idea, plan your priorities, sit in thought, reflect, breathe into your vision. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't even need to be pretty, but it must be yours. When a man begins his day by consuming, he becomes a carrier, not a commander. He walks around with borrowed thoughts. He starts the race behind, trying to catch up. And no matter how much he does later, something always feels off. He's reactive. His edge is dulled. his clarity clouded. Why? Because he skipped the moment where his mind was still his own. Picture this. A king who wakes up and immediately invites every stranger into his throne room. Before dressing, before thinking, before setting his direction. By the time he wants to speak, there's too much noise to be heard. That's what most men do. They let the world in before they've even met themselves that day. But imagine the opposite. A man rises with the sun. No talking, no outside voices, just stillness. And then a spark. A note jotted down, a plan laid out, a thought formed into clarity, a decision made in silence. That man has declared something powerful. I lead my mind. It does not lead me. That's why the first 30 minutes are sacred. They are not for responding. They are not for absorbing. They are for initiating. You may meditate, you may journal, you may write your goals, you may build your business, or simply shape your thinking. But it must be creation first. Output before input. Think of a composer rising at dawn. No voices in the hallway, only fingers on keys, only him in the stillness. That's when music flows, because nothing else has filled the space. The room is empty of noise, and in that emptiness, truth enters. Or imagine a philosopher just before sunrise. He sits, not with books, but with his own questions. He reflects, he contemplates, he sharpens the tools of reason. Only later, after his mind is anchored, will he engage with the outside world. Because he knows your thoughts must be forged before they are tested. What about you? Have you been beginning your days as a creator or a consumer? Do you start with discipline, or do you surrender to the current of other people's urgencies? Most men are not weak because they lack ambition. They are weak because they've outsourced the beginning of their day. And when you lose the morning, you rarely regain your strength. You carry that passivity forward into your work, your interactions, your decisions. You're foggy, you're scattered, you're off. And you can't fix it halfway through the day. You have to own it from the beginning. So, how do you start this habit? You guard the first 30 minutes like a warrior at the gate. No messages, just you and your work. You train your mind to expect this time, to crave it. You wake up with purpose, not to check, but to create. And once you build this rhythm, you'll begin to feel the shift. Because something powerful happens when you begin the day with your own voice. You become centered, clear, composed. The world still speaks, but it no longer drowns you out. You hear it after you've already declared your direction. And that is how a man builds momentum. Not from speed, not from hustle, but from clarity, earned in solitude through consistent creation. So I ask you again, and ask with seriousness, who begins your day? You? Or the world? If it's not you, you've already lost something you may not even recognize. But it's not too late to reclaim it. Start tomorrow. Rise early. Sit with yourself. Don't touch the noise. Create, think, plan, write, reflect, and notice what happens. Not just to your morning, but to your entire life. You'll walk differently, decide differently, lead differently. Because when you create first, you command the day. When you consume first, you surrender it. Choose wisely. Change doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen daily. Every small habit you choose builds the future you either desire or regret. So walk away from this not just inspired, but decided. Decide to act. Decide to build. Decide to change. Because once your habits shift, your identity follows, and your life will never look the same. Start today. One habit, one decision, one step closer to the life you were meant to live.